My name is Michelle Lucero and I am a reviewer for QAI. I'm going to talk about use of non-organic ingredients within an organic product. In order for a processed product to qualify for organic certification, it has to have a minimum of 95% organic ingredients. That last remaining 5%, however, is also regulated in what it can contain. Within the regulations, there's what's called the national list. So all of those remaining 5% have to qualify within that national list. For processors manufacturing products for human consumption, you're going to focus on 605 and 606. It's split into two different sections because 605 is specifically for products that are non-agricultural in nature. So you're looking at your minerals, your microorganisms, things that cannot be produced in an organic form. Where 606, you're looking at agricultural products that can be organically, but for whatever reason are deemed not currently commercially available in either the form or function, and so there can be an allowance for use of those ingredients. 605 is going to be for products that are non-agricultural in nature, and those are often the things that have been deemed necessary for use in order to manufacture processed products. So they're preservatives, they're carriers, they're different things that we know are necessary for making processed products. Now the material has to be specifically listed on there to be part of that remaining 5% within your product. However, it also has to meet any additional restrictions. For instance, everything on there has to be verified to meet the big three. So it's not genetically modified, it has not been produced with sewage sludge or radiation. Now occasionally some of the materials will have a second sort of restriction applied to them, which is known as an annotation. So if there's anything listed on 605 after that material, you're going to want to pay attention to what it's requesting and then make sure that you provide the documentation that your certifier will be able to verify that it meets full terms. 606 now, that's the agricultural materials. So again, the ones that could be produced organically, but they're not for whatever reason. And for those ones, you're also going to have to complete the same big three. So no genetic modification, no sewage sludge, no radiation, but also you need to prove that you went through your due diligence to make sure that there's not an organic version available. The national list changes often. These materials have been vetted, they've been petitioned, they've been dissected, discussed. So if you find that you really need a material but it's not on there, then you're going to want to petition to have that material added. And also, you're going to want to pay attention to when those materials come up for review so that they're not being what's called sunsetted or removed from the list. When you're reviewing your formulation to ensure you're qualifying for organic status, and you're looking at, okay, I've got my 95% organic ingredients, and here are the other 5% of ingredients that I'm filling. Note that if it's a processing aid, so it has a technical function, but it's no longer within the final product, regulations don't require you to put it on the label. That's a good way of knowing if it qualifies for a processing aid. You don't actually have to weigh that ingredient into the final composition. Especially if you use the QAI product formulation form, there's a specific line where you could list, this is a processing aid, and it will help you kind of work through those. The national standard specifically states that water and salt do not have to be calculated as part of the weight of the final product. And that's because neither of these can ever be produced as an organic form, and they're pretty basic and common. So for salt, though, you do have to make sure that there are no prohibited anti-flow agents or anti-caking agents, which sometimes salt manufacturers will put in there. The way you want to make sure that it's compliant is to request a complete label or specification sheet from the salt manufacturer that specifically lists out any added ingredients, or sometimes they'll just come right out and say, this salt contains no additive anti-caking or flow agents. If you are submitting your product formulation, and it includes materials that are off on the national list, you're going to want to submit to your certifier also those verification forms of the big three that we previously discussed. You're also going to want to include a specification sheet so we can look at what is in that material and make sure it fully complies.